YouTube, Quinway coming to y'all with that basketball analysis on Analysis Playground and on YouTube. We're going to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers, and this is a team that's been getting a lot of hype with the addition of Paul George and the abundance of growth with Tyrese Maxey, a guy that became an all-star and one of the best point guards in the league. And then they got one of the best big mans in the league, Joel Embiid, a guy that was putting up 34 and 11 just last year, even though he played 39 games. He can't stay healthy, and that's the purpose of this video, asking and answering another fan question. Should we be excited about the addition of PG-13, which his jersey will be changed this up and coming season? But I think that this is a fun thing to see. We already seen iterations of Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler, and Joel Embiid. We done seen Tobias with Maxey and Joel Embiid. We done seen, just Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid with some role players sprinkled in there that can shoot or, was decent ISO players. And then we done seen Joel Embiid become that superstar player where he's dominating every single possession and just have good fill-in players around him. And none of it, honestly, has become success. And it's crazy because a lot of people looked at Embiid as that franchise changing guy, and that's why he took the nickname. It ain't Ben Simmons. It ain't none of these guys. I'm the process. I'm the guy y'all been hunting for. I'm the guy y'all been tanking for to be able to get this team to a title. And even though he has the confidence, and you got to give him credit for wanting to own that role of, I'm confident in my style of play. I know that I'm going to be the best player on this team. He already beat out Nerlens Noel and Jahlil Okafor and those guys for that center spot. And everything is now, how can we give the ball to an Embiid and dominate? And we just seen even James Harden version of me, Tobias Harris, and a little bit of Maxey and a lot of Embiid too. And that lineup wasn't even good enough to get them still past to the third round in the Eastern Conference. So not only did they not make a finals appearance yet, they haven't even made a conference finals appearance yet. And he has had his fair share of guys that have great runs. Even James Harden led a team to the Western Conference Finals with Chris Paul, and then he had some success with Dwight Howard before in Houston. And then you look at Jimmy Butler, he made it to the finals twice. And he even had to put out Joel Embiid before just to get to, another round. And that's why he left. He had more success with Bam Adebayo than he had with Joel Embiid. And you can say, granted, he didn't play long enough years-wise to be able to get the maximum out of Joel Embiid, because you look at the fact that Jimmy Butler ended up leaving a little premature, and they probably could have had a great run because Kawhi Leonard Raptors went down after that 1 year. They blew that team up because Kawhi Leonard wanted to leave. And then you can look at the fact that Boston was still young, and they still usually get beat by the Heat until now, where they're getting a little older and the roster is not as good as it used to be for Miami. And the Celtics is on the upturn when it comes to roster, with them making great trades and making great roster additions under the supervision of Brad Stevens. And you look at what has Daryl Morey really done. I feel like he has done a great job putting any type of talent around Joel Embiid, and you got to give credit to Elton Brand and all those other guys there in the front office in Philadelphia, because they have tried so many different things with this guy Joel Embiid, and it just hasn't worked no matter what they have put around. They had them put defenders, perimeter players, shooters, ball handlers, playmakers, and nothing has actually materialized into significant success. Like, they haven't been having the greatest regular seasons, and they also haven't been having the greatest, playoffs. And Joel Embiid is a guy that has some blemishes on his playoffs because he has struggled to miss. He missed free throws against the Atlanta Hawks that could have got them to the conference finals. Him and Ben Simmons, Ben Simmons was the scapegoat, and Joel Embiid flopped a little bit in that series too. It wasn't all on Ben Simmons like they say, but Joel Embiid, by him being better and by him being more productive, they're gonna put somebody that's lesser. Either it's the coach, who ended up being fired too, which was Doc Rivers, and obviously other ones after that. and everybody's trying to figure out when you got a guy that can get 30 and dominate the league, and his defense has slid a little bit compared to what we thought that he would be and what he was doing earlier. But that was a more sample size of now I have teammates that can do more for me, so I can focus more on defense. And now he can't really do that as the focal point of the team. Now we need you to carry that load because we're not as good, and we need you to be dominant because you want to be that guy that comes with the superstardom, which is you. We eat off you, and I feel like Joel Embiid just not that guy. I mean, and he's getting in his 30s. I feel like Paul George is older than him, so I don't really get too high off this because the Bucks are in that conversation, the Celtics are in that conversation, and you have so many other teams that's on the same level as the Sixers, like the Cavaliers, and a team, like it's just so many of them that the Cavaliers and the Indiana Pacers are two more teams that I would say are on the same level as the Sixers and can beat them in a series, just based off what we've seen last year and just based off that they still young too, and they're confident teams and they have a lot of talent and they can match up well against a team like the Sixers where Paul George hasn't had the greatest playoffs himself. And Tyrese Maxey, even though he is a high volume scorer and he's a guy that can really cause a lot of chaos offensively, he's not the greatest defender and he's a little tiny. So when it comes to his body, so I see why a lot of people was talking about the Sixers and they really deserve their conversation because they got the biggest free agent this year in Paul George, and a lot of people feel that Joel Embiid is the problem in the Olympics defensively and offensively. And, you just really want him to stay as healthy as possible because 39 games is absolutely ridiculous for your franchise player to be able to play that many games, and that's it out of an 82 game season. But it has been a recurring problem of Joel Embiid and the mentality of we just need him healthy for the playoffs. He doesn't been healthy for a lot of playoffs, and he hasn't really been able to get past the Celtics or teams like the Heat, and those teams are still going to be in his way. Like if you want to add a 16, Khalil Ware with a little bit of Bam Adebayo with some shooting and some him and Faye Butler. I mean, you know what I'm saying, Jimmy Butler. I just had to crack that joke because we call him and Faye over here. That's another 16. Like after the Cavaliers and the Pacers, you can say the Heat, and that's another team that showed that they can beat the Philadelphia 76ers, and they have done it before with Jimmy Butler after he left. And it's just crazy to see that it might not be no room for the Sixers to actually be a contender. Maybe they just being known as a team that has a lot of talent, and we should notice them and give them credit for being able to amass this amount of talent. But when it comes to being a championship team, do I look at the Sixers like that? No, but then again, that's why they went for Paul George. But Paul George hasn't really done that much with the Clippers, and even though he's putting up great regular season numbers, you're playing against the good, the bad, and the ugly. You're not playing great team to great team, which is the second and the third round, and obviously the NBA Finals. And then you need Joel Embiid to be defensively great, which he hasn't been in years, and you need him to still be dominant offensively. Obviously, this is going to be a huge training camp for the Sixers. It's going to be a huge time to really see what works and what doesn't work, even as the buyout and the trade deadline comes close to next season. And I would say I'm not honestly high on a team like the Sixers. I'm looking at them like, well, I mean, you're going to be top six. You're going to miss the play-in tournament, which is good. You can be more rested. You can be more prepared. But when I'm looking at teams like with the teams in the Eastern Conference, I'm not really crazy over the Sixers. I'm like, y'all just as good as everybody else. Y'all in that era where y'all might just be a first round exit just because y'all don't have the firepower, or y'all just don't have a guy with the killer instinct, or y'all defense just might not be good enough to get y'all over that hump against a team that got a little bit more 3-point shooting and guys that can do similar things to what y'all can do, but they more healthier, they more angry, they more hungry, and they're more trying to be more proven. And I feel like this team got like a relaxed, nonchalant type of feel to them when they haven't really had that much success in the playoffs. And Paul George hasn't really went on that run since the injury. He's been kind of, after the Clippers got beat by the Suns, that run was up, and he seemed like he was cool with it, based off the conversations. And it is great to play with a guy like Joel Embiid until he doesn't really have too much success around his name and what he has done outside of the MVP. You know what I mean? And Joel Embiid obviously will be a Hall of Famer just based off the numbers, just based off longevity, just based off his chunk of dominance of being an All NBA player and an All Star player. And we'll see where this team can go. But the fans want to know what I feel about the Sixers. I would say they're a playoff team. They're top six. I really hope they can stay healthy so we can finally see this team competing again, for possibly championships. But based off the roster, based off what I see, they're just going to be a Cleveland. They're just going to be Indiana. And that just means they're still going to be under the Celtics. And like Joel Embiid said in the press conference, they always kick our and it's the truth. My Celtics always be kicking their butt, and it seems like that's not going to be stopping, even though they got to have the hopeful mentality, the wishful thinking mentality to be able to give themselves a chance, and that's go out there and compete and give it your all, and maybe you can take down a Titan. But realistically, if Celtics are healthy and the Sixers are healthy, the Celtics are the better team. And we all know that. We all will admit that even before last year. And same with these other teams like the Indianas, the Heat, and the Cavaliers, and all these teams that you have to go against just to get down that road. And then you look at teams like Orlando, and that's another team that could be possibly tough and could I honestly be on the same level of the Sixers just based off development. And that's just the honest truth about it. And people say, wow, we done made this big acquisition and everybody finally talking about us again since we done drafted Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. That's the excitement that Paul George and Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey should be giving y'all, because of this is the type of player you would need, is a guy that can be legitimate 20-point scorer to go with a 20-point scorer to go with another 20 to 30-point scorer. But these role players really have to shine and really have to do their due diligence to be able to successfully help this team fill in those gaps where these guys fail a little bit, because these guys haven't been able to really get it done even at their peaks so far. And some of these guys still in their prime-ish where they can still contribute, but I'm not going crazy over the Sixers. I haven't heard too much content from you. I haven't really heard too much outside of the free agency, and it's some fun questions like this. And I like, nah, the Sixers, they in the mix. They're in the mix, and the Bucks, are to me are better than the Sixers, and I think that they can beat them, especially with the addition of Dame. They got more firepower. They got guys that's fearless and got the ability to take over too, but they just got a little bit more defense. They got a little bit more preparation that they care more about than I feel the Sixers does. And I feel like Joel Embiid and some of these guys can be a little immature, or they can be a little bit hit or miss compared to what I done seen from teams like the Bucks. And I think that that's a difference, when it comes to picking a team, is those intangible things that you have to be successful. And I feel like the Sixers lack that even against a team like the Bucks. If they see them in the second round and they don't see the Celtics, I can see that being a tough series also for the Philadelphia 76ers. And like I said, with Khalil Ware going with Bam and Jimmy and Duncan and Tyler Hero, and the Heat still filling out their bench still to this day, I feel like the Heat can still match up well and give them some toughness, when it comes to style of play. And they have always gave them trouble too, and I can still see them being able to play them in the first round or the second round and giving Philly some trouble putting them out, even with the addition and the rise of Paul George and Tyrese Maxey. And it just shows you how hard it is to win in this league. It just shows you how hard it is to win a championship, that things have to go right. Things have to be a little luck in there when it comes to injuries, or your guys have to make some shots, or you just got to go out there and play as hard as you can and give yourself the best chance to win. And even then, that's sometimes not enough, as teams can just play better than you, and that can be the deciding factor too. So there's no way to get it done. It's just this team is not just blowing me away, and I don't think it's blowing anybody away. They just gave us something new to talk about, gave us something different to look at, and then after that, it kind of just slowly faded away the last 2 weeks, and now you just hear about the other teams that we normally hear about the last 5 years still being the topic of conversations. Other than that, like, comment, subscribe, and share. Hit that notification bell. And just remember, since it's the summertime, I got 2,000 plus classics on this channel. So take your time, watch some more of these content, continue to support me like you guys have been doing. And thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and thanks for continuing this adventure with me. But the Sixers, they made some noise. They made a big move. They should get credit for it. And it's good that a guy wants to play with Embiid, like Harden, like Jimmy, like Ben Simmons. They was happy to have that chance to play with a guy that's dominant, that's really great at what he does, really changed his game and became a shooter, became a great free throw shooter, really evolved into one of the best big men we've done seen, in a long time. Even though I'm a Jokic guy, like I said, who had to pick who will win the championship first, I said Jokic, and that was years ago, and it turned out to be accurate. But and B got to figure out, how do I win with my style? He always saying this don't work, or this don't work, or this don't work in the modern game. Now he has to figure out what does work and what can I go all in on as a player and as a teammate, so I can be the guy that leads a team to the championship, like a Kareem, like a guy like Moses Malone, and guys of that ilk that have been able to do it, even like a Bill Walton, if you want to do early Embiid, or even simpler terms, a guy that led the team to the final, like a Dwight Howard. He led a team to the finals and ultimately got a ring by playing a role. If Joel Embiid, should he be the process? Like, can you really win with Joel Embiid being a 1A? Maybe he should be a 1B. And I told people, like, I think Joel Embiid might be better as the second best player, because he can do more defensively, he can get more rebounds, and he can not be as exhausted and not really getting as much contact and collisions, because he's not using all his effort to score a bunch of buckets. And on top of that, you look at the fact that you can make it easier on him and his body by putting the ball in somebody else's hands. And I seen them try to do that with Tyrese Maxey and James Harden, but they took a little bit too much from him, and he really had his mind set on something else, which was MVP, and he really cared about the regular season. And now the roster kind of looked mediocre-ish at the bottom of it, but it looks really great at the top of it. And you can even see that lineup, and you're not going to go crazy over it, or you're not going to say, wow, they really have a chance to win just based off their starting lineup. It still looks a little iffy when you look at the rest of the Eastern Conference and even the Western Conference. If you can beat the teams in the East, which is going to be tough already, can you even beat the teams like Denver, Minnesota in the West, and etc.? And I feel like this team is not that. I feel like they're good to talk about, they're good to watch, but I don't really see them getting it done in the next 3 years with Paul George. I feel they're going to be more like a Luka Doncic team. You're going to put up the numbers, you're going to accelerate your way to the Hall of Fame, you're going to be a top 100 player, and then it's about, can you find the right mix of players and the right superstar to pair with you to get it done against a team that could be elite just like you. And then it's about you raising your level of play to make sure the title is there for the taking. And nobody's going to give it to you. Nobody's going to hand it to you. You got to want it more than anybody else. So you got to put yourself in position and deliver is all you can really do to be a champion. And that's how it's won and that's how it's done. And then you got to defend at a high level. And I feel like some of these superstars not defending and playing as hard as they used to. They want everything to be a little given to them. And that's why they're not champions yet. And that's just something they got to learn. Not saying that they won't win the title. And I'm not saying that Joel Embiid won't do it. He might not do it in Philadelphia, or he might do it in Philadelphia. He might just do it with a different set of teammates. It's all that I'm saying. And he done had so many different versions of this team with him in Philadelphia, being stacked and being loaded, being top heavy, being scattered a little bit with talent like they are now. But they just can't find that right mix of guys with a guy like Joel Embiid. And maybe it's just Joel Embiid and his play style and what he prefers to do in general that just gives people that vibe of he can't get it done as the best guy. Plus the health concerns is always there. Like I said, 39 games, like you just can't do that. You just can't do that. And like I said, that's a reality of what he has been able to do when it comes to not being able to stay healthy. And if I can't count on you to dominate and I can't count on you to be on the court, we have a lower chance of the process actually being something that's successful even in the future. Other than that, I'm gone.